Hi, it's Sandra here from Create in Spain, and today I wanted to give you an update on stamping materials. Now, I've stamped a few images with some largely acrylic paint. The only one that isn't acrylic in the bit that you can see is the black one, and that was done with Memento ink in Tuxedo Black. I've been experimenting with all sorts of materials for stamping in order to make my own stamps, because one of the reasons that I do crafting is I like to do things myself rather than buy things that someone else has designed. So first off, there are pieces of foam that you can buy that are like this one, which is approximately 1.5–2 millimeters thick. And this stuff is great if you want to do like this background stamps, or if you want to do things like this, large leaves, or if you want to do a reasonably chunky sort of design. And if I put this in closer, I don't know if the camera's going to focus. No, it's going to go all out of focus. You have to take my word for it, but it's kind of a little bit, well, fluffy on some of the edges there. That is probably about as intricate as I would want to go with that kind of foam. It can cope with the heavier things quite happily. This, perfectly all right, but the other stuff, not really. So yeah, if you want to do the heavy duty stuff, that's fine. The next one down is one that I have used on the right hand side for the Christmas tree design. This is the actual stamp here, and yeah, you can just about see that, can't you? And this is a much thinner foam. It's probably no more than 1 millimeter thick. Now, it does cut quite nicely as long as you have a reasonably simple design to do. You must make sure that it is well adhered to the mat. But the trouble is that actually gives you a problem in itself, because, for example, on this stamp here, where I've got one that says happy, I've managed to get that to cut it out, and I've got it onto a mount, which is just a piece of acetate. However, it took me about 10 goes to get it to cut without it doing this. And I don't know if you can easily see. I think it's out of focus. It's broken. And that happens an awful lot, because if you get it sticky enough on the mat, you have difficulty then in peeling it off without it breaking. It is, however, fine if you want to do larger lettering like this Christmas one that I've cut out. And yeah, that will cut out fine, and it will stamp fine as well. The thickness is just about right for stamping. It's just getting the design cut out in it that is a real bugbear. The ones in the middle of the sheet, I have here one that I stamped, the sort of flowery one, which is in red and black, or orange and black I should say. This is cut out of window film, and it is very, very thin. Again, you have to make sure that it is well adhered to a mat in order to cut it out. And I used a 45-degree blade with a setting of 50 and did a double cut. If it is too high a pressure, it will wrinkle up on the mat and then it will cut over itself, so you've wrecked it. So it's better to do a light pressure and a double cut. Now, I can get this to stamp reasonably well, but it is pretty delicate, and it does really need mounting on some acetate, I'll grant you that. But it is capable of printing out. It's just a little bit fiddly to cut, and you may give up before you get a good cut. You may not. I mean, it does cut through very, very easily. It's just getting it to stay on the mat and to not buckle and then wreck. That is the problem with that one. Because if you don't have the setting exactly right, you either won't cut through it at all or it'll lift off the mat. So it's a very fine line between the two. However, yesterday I found another option, and for me I think this is going to be the Holy Grail for printing sentiments. And as you can see, I have some words cut out here, and I've mounted them on my usual acetate. And these actually are the ones printed on the left side of the page. And if I bring this in, you may just be able to see this one here, which is a very, very fine cut indeed, and a very fine print. Now, I will say that I tend to use acrylic paints for doing my stamping, and some paints print better than others. You need to get it of a good consistency. Too thick and it doesn't print particularly well, too thin and it doesn't print particularly well. But I tend to find, for example, that things like this in bottles are perfectly adequate for printing, and I just use a cosmetic sponge on my stamp and then print away. Now, I'm not an expert at printing, and any mistakes on that sheet are mine, not really a fault of the material. You can see what I've got cut out here. If I show you my actual stamp, there's my stamp, you see, for the tree. And this is actually quite sturdy, and what it is, surprisingly enough, it is tablecloth fabric. In Spain, certainly they sell this in virtually every hardware store, in every department store, all over the place. And I've got a swatch, here we go, here's a swatch. It is plastic on one side and it has a sort of fabric backing to it on the rear. Now, one thing I would say with this, if you do buy it, and that is, for most objects you can cut it so that it's face down like that, and it won't be a problem. I cut the little flower that way, for example, and that's reasonably fine. You know, that's not a really thick design. However, when I tried to cut lettering like that, no matter what I did, it was a mess. A complete and utter mess. It would come off the mat, it would wrinkle up, it would cut over bits that were previously cut. It was a disaster zone. So I tried cutting it the other way up, which actually has the benefit that you don't have to reverse your lettering either, because you cut it like so anyway, if you can see that. Actually, you probably can't because it's white on white. But you cut it letters up, so what you see is literally what you are cutting out and what you will get as a stamp. And as long as that is well adhered to the mat, then you're fine. Now, the benefit of using this stuff well adhered to the mat is that it is tough enough to peel off the mat afterwards without you having a problem. If it's cut through, it's cut through, that's it. You can still get it off the mat. Whereas this thinner stuff will sometimes break if it's so well stuck on that it's a problem. So yeah, I have done some other stamping with this tablecloth material, and it has worked fine. It's not been an issue. I have got a clear stamp out of it. As I don't tend to stamp too much with the Memento. I bought it simply to see what stamping inks were like. I can't say with my homemade stamps I'm unduly impressed with Memento, but maybe that's simply me. Maybe I'm expecting a bit too much of it. I just find it, to be honest, I just find it easier to do a good job with my acrylic paints, and they're cheap and I don't have any short supply of them. I've got them in gold, silver, various colours, golds and the like, so I don't really have an issue. So that's it. That's as far as I've got. If I find anything else that stamps any better, I will let you know. Oh, I did try out some heavy duty strip that's used for making refrigerative curtains. Unfortunately, although I could cut it out in simple shapes, it's not suitable for lettering. The machine won't cut it. It's 2 millimeters thick. If you can find that stuff in 1 millimeter or 1.5, buy some, because I think that would be the ultimate solution. However, I can't seem to find it, and I had to get the stuff that I did get from the UK, and I got a friend to bring it over for me. But it's fine for really large things. For example, if I wanted to cut out a background stamp like this from it, I could do it. But if I wanted to cut out a butterfly like that, no, I wouldn't. So yeah, those are choices. So I hope you find this useful, and I hope you have a go at making your own stamps, because it is fun and it can be very rewarding indeed. Thanks for watching. Bye.